Hello, everyone. This is Santhosh Christudas. I'm coming to you from the Toronto Business Journal. I have here with me today a very prolific book marketer, Brian Feinblum, who has promoted thousands of authors over the past 3 decades, from first-time authors to self-published authors, through his blog, bookmarketing buzzblog.blogspot.com. And of course, he's helped with a lot of mega best-selling ones, such as books by Dr. Ruth, Victor Hansen, Neil Rackham, Harvey Mackay, Ken Blanchard, Cindy Adams, Susan Ano, Jeff Foxworthy, and of course, the Fonz himself, Henry Winkler, which was which we'll get into as well. So yeah, welcome to the show, Brian Feinblum, and so glad to have you here, and it's really an honor to meet you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So first, to start off, why do you love helping authors to get their message out there so much?
Thank you. I am very passionate about helping authors. You know, it's been a long time, over 30 years, as you mentioned, and a lot has changed in the book marketing world and publishing world, and authors need help. And so when I graduated from college back in 1989, I wanted to be a journalist. I majored in English and journalism. Writing was my thing, and there were no jobs out there for an aspiring journalist trying to make it in New York City. That was the #1 media market. So I decided to work for a book publishing company and thought that'd be close enough. I'll get to work with writers and the media and publicity and mix it up. And I ended up staying. I love books. I ended up working for several book publishing companies and then a very large book publicity firm. And last year I started my own book marketing practice, and it's been terrific. Authors need help. I love the written word. I think books are really important. You know, over the years, whether you're talking about a 3-year-old, 4-year-old learning to read, or a 90-year-old who has to still engage their mind and be active. I mean, books are everything to me. They entertain, they inspire, they enlighten. And look, for some people, they could change their lives. You read a book, a self-help book, or the Bible, or an inspirational book, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and a lot of, I know a lot of people love movies, right? Most of the greatest movies come from books.
Absolutely, you're right.
The written word.
That.
Like I was just watching The Godfather, you know, just a few days ago. It's such a classic, timeless classic, but it would not have been possible unless Mario Puzo wrote the book and it got to where it was, right? And
That's
people
correct.
quote from that movie all the time, but it all came from a book. So the importance is very, very much there for sure. And culturally too, as you said, the Bible, religion, and all these things.
Yeah,
So,
in every aspect of life. You want to improve in business, there are books. You want to have a better relationship, there's a book for you. You want to lose weight, there's a book. There's a zillion books.
That's true. 100%, 100%. I agree with that completely. And so like there are literally like 4,000 books published daily, right? That's the statistics right now.
An enormous number, yes.
Yes, I did not know that. That's a lot of people.
And it's growing.
Wow. Especially now, I think self-publishing is becoming more accessible. So maybe that's why there are more books now than ever before, do you think?
That's right. So I'll give you a quick point of reference. So when I started out about 30 years ago, the number of books published in an entire year was approximately 45,000 books. And that was mostly by traditional publishers that you'd recognize, you know, HarperCollins, or Random House, Simon & Schuster, that type of thing.
Right.
Now with self-publishing, 3 out of every 4 books that are published are self-published. So out of that 4,000 per day, 3,000, that's over 1 million in a year, are self-published.
Wow.
But the traditional publishers have exploded also. So they went from 45,000 books a year to about 375,000 books a year. So but if there was no self-publishing, there's over 1,000 books a day from traditional houses. I mean, it's tremendous.
That's incredible. Wow. It's I always kind of had a feeling that books were going down, but I mean, especially now with the internet and, you know, all these, you know, YouTube and all these streaming services now that, and of course, you know, like everybody has their own website or their blog. So I thought books were going down, but in fact, they're actually going up now. The amount
That's right. They are going up, you know,
Wow.
and this is even before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, book sales were shooting up. Even though many bookstores were physically closed, book sales went up. People ordered more online, especially from Amazon.
Wow.
The interesting thing, you point out, you know, some people are under the impression that books are dying or books are slowing down.
Yeah.
what is slowing down is the profitability of a book. So there are more books being published, more books are being sold, but the number of copies per book has been going down gradually, exponentially. You know, as more books come out, because the reading public can only absorb so much. You know, as you pointed out, there's so much free information out there, blogs and websites, and they're watching Netflix, and they've got a job, and they've got chores, and they got a life, right?
Yeah.
So if you love reading, you can only reach so many books in a week or a year. You can only afford so many. So you're right that the industry is going in two different directions. It's making money, but it's coming in different forms.
Wow. That's really great. So out of all this competition, so I guess people need, authors need people like you more than ever, right? Like, how do you
100%.
promote a book so that it gets discovered in this so much variety?
That's a very good point. Even when you're published by a traditional publisher, authors need to be active in their promotions. And certainly when it comes to self-publishing, you're it. You're the owner, you're the writer, you're the marketer, you're the company. No one's going to find your book unless you raise your hand and scream and shout. There's many ways to scream and shout. Certainly social media is one of them. Traditional media, speaking engagements, advertising. I mean, lots of different ways. So, but authors, they get overwhelmed. They want to write their books and they want people to read them or turn a book into a movie or to sell 1 million copies. But they're not as willing or able or as experienced in marketing a book. And that's the key, is that I speak with authors every single day, and they know it, but they're reluctant that oh my God, I have to market this book. They spent all this time writing it. It's their baby. They worked hard to get it published or self-published. And now the fun really begins, so to speak, is how do you get it out there? The old saying, if you build it, they will come. If you write it, people won't find it unless you help them look for it.
Exactly, especially with so much competition, as we already
so much competition, as we pointed out. Even if the competition was 1/10 of what it is, there's still a lot of things out there that people need to be heard and discovered.
Right. So you must have developed your own formula by now, on how to market a certain book by a certain author. For example, somebody like the Fonz from Happy Days, everybody knows him already. So I guess promoting his book would be a little bit different than somebody who's a completely unknown author. So is there any formula that you have when it comes to promoting books these days, especially?
Oh, sure. And this is exactly what I write about almost daily on Book Marketing Buzz blog, is there is a formula, so to speak, or a menu of things that one could or should do. But of course, it's going to vary based on the author. How much time do you have? How much money do you have? Will you do certain things? Will you hire someone to do certain things? And even in the case of Henry Winkler, the Fonz, he was published by a traditional publisher. He's got a brand name behind himself. He had a TV show at the time when I was promoting him, not Happy Days, but the other one, Royal House or whatever it was called. But he still, even his book needs to be promoted and marketed. People won't know it exists unless you put it out there. So for him, obviously the standards are different. Whereas for most authors, they would be happy with and need to, do a lot of blogging and do radio interviews and public appearances and stuff. For him, he's thinking, all right, what's the biggest bang for my buck? And his time is valuable. He does a lot of things. He's very active as an actor and director. So, we got him on some major shows. He was on, at the time, David Letterman's show was around, the late night show, among other things. And that was a lot of fun. So at different levels, everyone has to promote. It's almost like people wonder, well, why does Coca-Cola still spend billions of dollars on advertising? Everyone knows about Coca-Cola, and that's all that's sold is Coke or Pepsi. But if they want to retain their market leadership, if they want to increase profits and take money away from Pepsi or potential new brands, Coke has to continue to advertise, and so does Henry Winkler and famous people.
Right.
But for the unfamous, if that's a word, or the people who want to become more famous, I'd say the formula has to do with certainly traditional media, getting book reviews, trying to get feature stories in local media, your local newspaper, your community weekly paper, speaking appearances, bookstores, libraries, nonprofits, local organizations, business organizations, wherever you can speak. If you speak well, you will sell your book. You'll literally hand sell it. You're you'll speak with your passion and your excitement to a targeted audience that hopefully already is predisposed to your message.
Interesting.
Digital media, certainly. When I say
course.
digital media, there's different types of media. So there are websites of traditional media like CNN.com, NewYorkTimes.com.
Right.
There are standalones, HuffPost.com, Salon.com.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there are many blogs and YouTube channels and podcasts that you would love to be a guest on or to guest post on someone else's blog. There's your own social media.
Yes.
I mean, there's so much. There's your own social media. You could be on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and Instagram and Pinterest and on and on and on.
Exactly.
Certainly, authors can create their own content. You could have your own blog, your own podcast, your own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
All this takes time, energy. Some authors love it. Some authors feel overwhelmed. They wonder what's going to have a payoff. And is anyone really listening out there? You know, they put out this content like a book or a blog and like, is anyone listening?
Yeah, I understand from the author's point of view, they spend so much time and energy into creating the content, right, during the actual book. It's almost like they have to do the same amount of work, if not more now, to promote it. So
you said it.
Like either they love it or they hate it, or they have to hire somebody like you to like manage it for them, I think. Like,
that's right.
Channel.
That's right. There are basically three ways to go. You either do it all yourself, which is a lot.
Yeah.
You hire someone to do everything. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or you do a hybrid. You can what you're capable of, what you have time, what you have knowledge of.
Yeah.
Hire out a pro to do some of the other heavy lifting. And some things just don't get done. You know, some authors, they get excited, like, oh, I can speak and I can blog and I can do this. But realistically, it's hard to do everything.
Exactly. That's true.
And then authors feel guilty. Oh, I'm not blogging enough. Oh, I should be speaking at these stores. I know I should be doing this. And I tell them, forget about it. Just focus on what you can do and do it well.
Exactly. You don't want to like spread yourself too thin, right? Like
that's right.
All over the place. Right.
And don't feel guilty about it. You know, yes, if you're doing nothing, you should feel guilty. But if you're active and just recognize, okay, you can't do everything. It's like going on a diet. You can be good about certain foods and exercise, but some days you're gonna eat that cake, and some days you're gonna not jog around the block like you should be.
Exactly.
Don't feel guilty. Don't give up. Just keep at it.
I like that. That's very good. Don't feel guilty and don't give up. That's
both
right. Are very important, because if you feel too guilty, then you'll just kind of give up. Like they go kind of like hand in hand, right? Like
that's right. The air comes out of your tires, and all of a sudden, the whole thing falls apart. And you don't want that to happen.
Exactly. So with that being said, what are your tips to get like more like a social media is of course a huge thing to selling books right now. So do you have any tips to get more of bigger following for authors?
Sure. I mean, this is something every author has to confront, something I do every day. You know, when I'm promoting Book Marketing Buzz blog, I'm constantly getting new connections and posting on a regular basis.
Right.
So I think the first key is that authors have to realize social media is here, it's growing, even though there are drawbacks to social media and people post all kinds of, crazy stuff on social media. It's, they have to realize it's a tool. It doesn't matter what other people do with it. The question is, what will you as the author do with it? So my first suggestion is agree to do it, or if you're not going to do it, hire someone to help you do it.
Right.
Or the third option, which is, okay, if you don't use social media, then you've got to go a lot heavier on other areas. So if you're not active on Facebook and Twitter and the like, then you've got to be doing more speaking engagements. You've got to be doing more direct marketing. You've got to do more bookstore signs, etc. Because social media is free. It takes a lot of time, but it's free. And it's a great way to target people. I teach people every day, number one, go on several platforms, but not a ton. Go on, let's say, just hypothetically, be on Facebook, Instagram, and maybe Twitter. Mm-hmm. More than 3 is too much. 1 or 2 is great because you just get overwhelmed. It's hard to keep up with. But once you get into a rhythm, you get into a schedule and say, okay, every day or every other day, I'm going to post once, twice, 3 times a day. It depends on the medium. Twitter, you can post multiple times a day. Yeah. LinkedIn, maybe you do just once a day. Other things, sometimes you do once a week. But the key is to get on a posting schedule. All of your posts should have links back to your blog or your website. They don't have to be commercial. In other words, you don't have to just post, hey, buy my book and here's here's the link to Amazon. It could be, hey, did you see my latest blog post about something?
Mm-hmm.
Then they read the blog post that hopefully draws in someone and says, oh, I like this writer. He or she's a good writer.
Yeah.
It's on a topic that I'm interested in. I'm going to go buy their book. I mean, so it's a 1, 2, 3 step. It's get people connected, post to them, get them to read something, invite them in. And then 3, hopefully they see on your site, on your blog, oh, there's a book. Maybe I'll buy that book. It's a numbers game. You get a certain number of followers, a certain percentage will be responsive and buy a book. A certain percentage of those people will spread word of mouth naturally if it's a good book, or if it's a bad book, they'll spread word of mouth. You know, I bought this guy's book and it was terrible, don't buy it. Or this one's wonderful, you know. So people do use social media intelligently. They will embrace it and use it to their advantage. Another thing you do on social media is think about getting more connections. So authors, they may get the posting part right. Okay, I'm going to post once a day on this and twice a day on that, and I got my link and I got my blog, but they're not making a proactive attempt to reach out to people. And so that's the other part. To build your connections, whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, the like, there are many ways you can get more followers. I mean, you begin with emailing all the people that you know in your life. You know them from church or temple or school or jobs or neighbors or whatever, and say, hey, follow me on Instagram. Here's my thing. Follow me on Twitter. And some of the people will sign up. Then you can join different groups. A lot of these platforms have very targeted groups. So let's say you wrote a book about how to make your first million by age 30. So there are books about wealth and money. There are groups about wealth and money and career advice and entrepreneurship on Facebook and on LinkedIn. You can join those groups and they have thousands of targeted members that they're perfect for your message. So you join those groups, you post on those groups, you go individually to each of the members of that group and say, please connect with me. You offer something free to them. You know, I'll give you a free this or a free that. Free. There's lots of digital things you can send people that are free. You can even give your book away at certain times. It makes sense to give your book away for free as a way to lure people to your site or to sell another book. Let's say you wrote 2 books. Yeah. You give one book away for free, get attention for your writing, hope that they will then spread the word of mouth with good reviews, and possibly go back and say, oh, I like Brian's writing. I'm going to go buy his second book. I'll pay money for that one. Yeah, so that's a good one. There's a lot that's out there. I used to be not, you know, for the industry, I'm not in favor of free books, because if we keep giving away free books, people won't buy books. Yeah, as an individual, right? But individually, I recommend, yes, give things away for free, because it'll get attention for you and your book and your world, and it will help you with your branding and your marketing. So I feel conflicted. You know, on the one hand, I don't want to hurt the industry, and on the other hand, this is what's done. There's a lot of free stuff out there. You gotta compete with that. Like I would recommend, for example, giving a free copy to a popular known reviewer, right? Like that reviews books. Yeah. So that his or her followers can see that. That's right. You did. And that's right. Reach out to your network. You know, look to see who's following you. Look to see who's following your followers. Yeah. I mean, it's so easy. I mean, they make it so easy. You go on Twitter, you look to where people you're following and people who are following you. You click on each person that's following you and see who's following them. Yeah. And you could just go to each person and try and see if they'll connect with you, or send them a direct message about yourself, your blog, your book, what have you. So it's a, you know, without giving you every single step of the strategy, but the idea, as you can tell, is reserve time every day to post, to get connections and to interact, because that's how you'll build up your numbers, and hopefully your numbers will eventually translate into book sales. Right. So say you're helping a new author, like, and this person is like writing, spending a lot of time writing, and how many hours per day would you advise them to spend just on marketing, like say in a given day? So that's a very good question. There's certainly no exact number, because it depends on how efficient someone is. You know, some people can do a task in 10 minutes, and others it takes them 45 minutes to do the same exact thing. The more knowledgeable you are, the more goal-oriented you are, the better you're going to be at this. Certainly, it also depends on, you know, your demands. I have some authors that they work 10-hour, 12-hour days. They've got 3 kids at home. They've got 4 dogs to walk. So For some people, it's whatever time they can make. The key is whatever time that they make available, and they should make some every day, whatever that number is. What do they do at that time? They should have a focused game plan. Social media. Today, I'm going to reach out to 10 news media outlets. Tomorrow, I'm going to call 3 bookstores. So put a number next to everything. I'm going to do this tomorrow, today, next week. I'm going to contact X amount of people. And depending on how fast they are at doing those things, they may realize, oh, you know what? I'm going to do 6 stores today instead of 3 stores. Or I'm going to post on Twitter, for 30 minutes instead of 10 minutes because I'm so good at this and I'm seeing positive reactions. That's another thing. You have to react to the marketing. When people respond to you, if something is working, you go right back and keep doing that same thing until it's no longer working for you.
That's a good point.
So that will dictate to some degree how much time and what you do with your time.
Right. So you also mentioned it's a bit of a numbers game, right? So maybe, for example, you have a Facebook page and you have about 1,000 likes, right?
Yeah.
And obviously not 1,000 of them are going to buy your book, right?
Right.
It's going to be a percentage of that. So what approximately percentage can an author expect, from, say, that person has 1,000 followers? Out of that, do you think 10% of them will actually buy the book?
I see what you're saying. Sure. Well, first thing you mentioned about likes. Maybe I'm a rare book marketer, but I think the whole idea of likes is a waste of time. All these likes, because everyone knows there's nothing behind it. Someone asks you to like something and you like it. Or someone could be at their computer clicking like. It doesn't mean anything. I've never bought anything based on how many likes something has. Right. I don't even know how many likes is a significant number for anything. But you asked a good question about followers. So I don't know. In other words, if you have 1,000 followers or 10,000 followers, how many book sales can you get from that? It may depend on who these followers are in the first place. So if you wrote a book about a specific topic, it would help if your followers were already interested in that topic. So obviously they're more open and groomed to buying a book on that topic. Right. Then it's how active are you with them? What message are you giving to them that will make them want to buy this book? And maybe one day you lower your price as an incentive. Maybe one day you give them something free. So it's hard to say that for every 1,000 or 5,000 followers, you'll sell X amount of books. It really depends on what you're offering them, when you offer it, how you offer it. I know people who have hundreds of thousands of connections and followers. They don't sell hundreds of thousands of books. And I know people who have 800 followers, but they sell more books than they have followers. Wow. So because they're selling it from different sources in different ways. So 10%, I would say at best, maybe it would be something like 10%, but it's also what happens with your followers who send the message out to other people. So let's say you have a follower who has a lot of followers. That follower may buy one book, but they're telling tens of thousands of other people about your book. And then those people who buy your book, you won't know exactly where it came from, and it won't be your own followers. So it's hard to measure. It's definitely hard to measure, but the idea is that get the message out in a targeted way to as many people as often as possible, and you will sell books. So whether it's talking to the New York Post, talking to your local NPR station, doing a book signing in front of 40 people, going on social media, everything counts. Everything adds up. It's quality of effort and quantity.
The more you put yourself out there, the more you'll attract people.
That's right. That's right. I guess like the law of attraction, but don't just think it, do it.
Yeah, do it. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. And so also, since we're on the topic of topics, book topics, so I was wondering, do you think that certain book topics sell better than others? Like, for example, self-help books might sell a bit better than original novels, by unknown authors. Just, if you have any insight on that.
That's a good question. I get asked that all the time. People want to know what are the trends in publishing and what genres are selling. Certainly, statistically, there are fiction sells slightly more than nonfiction as far as the number of books sold. And then when you go into genres and subgenres, some will become very popular. Like a few years ago, vampire-related books were very popular, and then they weren't at all. Then erotica with 50 Shades of Grey, that became the hot thing, and so on and so on. So it goes circular. Eventually, you go back. Horror will get its day. Historical fiction is very popular. It depends really on obviously on the reader's taste. But in terms of genres that are doing well, right now all books are doing well overall. and in most formats. The one format that's interesting, ebooks. People buy ebooks, but they're not to the level that people think that they are. Yeah, 80% of the money that comes into publishing is still through print books. They make more money when they sell a print book, and it's worth more to them. So the digital books, even though there's a chunk of people who purchase digital books, there are more that buy paper books, and it's worth more money to the industry. So a lot of novels are bought as ebooks. I think people pay less money for a novel. It's almost like a throwaway item. But if it's a nonfiction book, a memoir, a how-to book, a political book about Trump or Barack Obama or Biden, people will spend the extra money and buy the hardcover or the paperback and keep it on their shelf. That's it's all over the place. I mean, there's a lot of genres that come and go, but historically, if you look in a bookstore, there's always going to be the romance section, even though what a romance is will be redefined. There's always horror books, but what horror is will be redefined. It's the same thing with movies. When I was growing up, they had all the slasher movies, like Halloween movies and Nightmare on Elm Street. And now you hardly see movies like that where there's it's heavy on just killing and slashing. There are other types of movies that are out there now. It's almost like asking, what's funny? If you ask comedians, what's funny these days? I'm sure that varies too. Sometimes political topics are hot. Sometimes just jokes about dating and ordinary life, make us laugh.
It depends on, like right now, I guess with the COVID-19, maybe that opens up a whole other topic, like brand new topic that almost came out of nowhere, right?
You're right.
So, things like that.
I think definitely because of COVID-19, more people were buying self-help books, inspirational books, psychology. More people were seeing therapists. More people were stressed out. More people gained weight. You're going to see a lot of diet books being purchased. So if you just look at it that way, all the different trends, different things have happened. I think soon you'll see travel guides went all the way down because no one was traveling.
Exactly.
But soon that'll come back, I think, with a vengeance. People are hungry and thirsty to get out there. So everything that's not been done the past year, people are going to double down on, this year.
So, for an aspiring author who hasn't written their first book yet, would you advise them to write something they're truly passionate about, even if it's not the greatest topic, like that may not sell well? Or would you advise them, hey, listen, maybe you should do a topic that's a bit easier to sell so you get more confidence in your writing ability? Because it can be a little bit demoralizing when you write your first book and the sales are not that great, and it's so what would you advise? Is it better to go with your passion or go with something safer that will sell?
I guess it depends on your goals. If you're looking at more from a business approach, then you write what you believe will sell. You write what you believe you can market, what will be easier for people to understand. But most writers write from their heart and from passion and what they know, whether it's life experience, career experience, hobby, whatever it may be. The key is, can you do both? Can you write what you know, what you're passionate about, but make it palatable and sellable to people? So I would say maybe that choice. Write what you want to write about, even if it's maybe an unknown topic or a less popular thing, but try and find a way to put things in there that people would want and make it more consumer friendly. So some people will say, well, that's a sellout. Don't change your art to appease the people. But I think you can be true to yourself and still bend a little and find a way to commercialize to some degree what you're writing about. And some don't. And that's okay. It's still going to come down to how well do you market and are you advertising, promoting, and marketing on a daily basis?
Okay, that's a great point. And so all this aside, how do books actually become bestsellers? What qualifies a book to that? Okay, this is the bestseller.
I get asked that quite often because everyone hears. First of all, everyone hears the term bestseller. Bestseller is not a legal definition, so there's no one that in particular that says, oh, your book is a bestseller. Now there are bestseller lists out there, but there is a variety of lists. So there are well-known lists. Certainly, New York Times bestseller would be the most prominent. USA Today has a bestseller list. Wall Street Journal, Publishers Weekly, which is the industry publication for books, Library Journal, which covers more of the library community. Of course, Amazon has bestseller list, Barnes and Noble, and on and on. And some local newspapers may have a bestseller list.
Right.
So certainly if you make one of those lists, you feel justified in saying you're a best-selling author. But even amongst those lists, there's still a difference. For instance, to be an Amazon best-selling author, Amazon's bestseller lists change every hour. Wow. So they're registering whatever sales take place in one specific hour at any one point in time, which books are selling the best. Mm-hmm. And then they break it down by genre and subgenre. So you go from all books, then you go to nonfiction books, then you go, let's say, to business books, then you go to business/career, then you go to business/career, and then maybe a specific industry. Right? There are very narrow genres and subgenres on Amazon to narrowly define what type of book a book is. And within those little genres, you may sell, some authors can sell 40 books, 50 books, 80 books in 1 hour on Amazon through some promotions and things. Yeah. They can hit the bestseller list within their category. They might be the #2 book in business/career/HR/ I don't know, whatever. Yeah. They really break it down. So that person justifiably can say, I'm a best-selling author. But of course, if you put them in the same room as a New York Times best-selling author, you would immediately see a difference, of what's what. But nevertheless, the goal is to get on the bestseller list for however brief, however small. Because number one, you can call yourself a best-selling author, and most consumers don't question it. They don't even know what list you made or what that means, right?
Right.
Number two, it feels good. You can take that and you could put that in your branding. Put a sticker on your book, best-selling author. Exactly. Put it in your email signature. So-and-so, author of the best-selling book. Put it on your website, in your press release, on your social media profile, and on and on. And then bestsellers beget more sales. When people hear that's a best-selling book, they're more inclined to buy it. Bookstores and libraries, they look to see what books hit different lists, especially the bigger lists, and they'll buy more books, more copies of that book, even though they have no idea if it's a good book, bad book, or otherwise. They just know, hey, people are buying this book, I better get a copy. And so, of course, you go hit these bestsellers. Now, the bigger ones, the bigger lists like a New York Times or a Wall Street Journal, the numbers vary. It depends on what month you release your book. For instance, if you release a business book in January, that's a busy time for business books. Everyone wants to start the new year right with, owning their own business, being the best manager, getting a new job, you name it. There's a self-help mindset. So all the books, business books released in January, a lot more competition at that point than if you release the business book, let's say in July. Mm-hmm. So if your goal is to make a bestseller list, I'd say release that business book in July. You have less competition from other business books. So right away, you may not have to sell 6,000 to 12,000 copies. Maybe you don't have to sell, you sell 4,500 copies of that book, and you can still make the bestseller list in your category. And you still have to sell a lot of books, but as you can see, there's a lot of manipulation as to when to release a book. Many people will do advertising and PR to try and push that book at a certain consolidated period of time, because bestseller lists are based on time. Amazon's a given hour. New York Times is within a given week. Some other publications or outlets, it's based on sales that happen in 1 month's time. So authors try really hard to try and figure out, okay, when can I release my book? What do I need to do? And a lot of authors forget about pre-sale. So let's say your book is going to be published or released on August 1st. Mm-hmm. Months before that, the book can still be listed on Amazon, and they'll say publishing August 1st, but you can pre-order the book. So someone can go on June 10th and pre-order the book. All those pre-order sales will count towards the bestseller list for the first week that book is out. So if you think about it, you can take weeks or even months of getting pre-orders, so that you might have 4,000 pre-orders come August 1st. You may be in a great position to hit a bestseller list because you spent months getting these pre-orders lined up versus trying to get 4,000 sales in just 1 week from advertising and PR and marketing.
Interesting. Thank you. That's like, I learned so much from that. Like bestsellers, because I normally, like you said, I thought if a book had a bestseller label on it, I just assumed that everybody considers this the bestseller, so this must be great. I'll try it. It's just that And then, but there's so many niches, like you mentioned, like,
Yes.
and Amazon especially, like they have so many subcategories, within subcategories. And
Exactly.
yeah, also speaking of Amazon, I did read in a certain article that you think that Amazon is actually a big threat to the industry. So I find that very interesting. I always thought Amazon was actually helping the authors get more known, or increase their sales. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, I mean, it is a tale of two worlds. Certainly for some authors, they love Amazon. Others deride Amazon. The reason I say that, I've written numerous blog posts on the Book Marketing Buzz blog. I am not a fan of Amazon. I mean, they exist. They're not going away, but you read about them every day. They are a monopoly in multiple industries. They're a threat. I mean, they're the one company that's a threat to every industry. They threaten real estate and retail. They threaten books. They threaten any industry that they step into. Now they're getting into pharmacies and medical stuff. They quickly take ownership of something because they have literally millions and millions of people signed up for their Prime. They've got a lot of power, and that it could be used for good in the sense that prices are low and service is great, but it could be bad in that they put people out of business and jobs. And once you destroy your competition, who's left to counter Amazon about their decisions on pricing or service or anything? Amazon now has canceled some books. They've taken control of what they decide to even list for sale on Amazon, which I think is a terrible, terrible thing.
Some censorship going on, I guess, as well.
Censorship, 100%. I mean, we hear it in different ways. The whole cancel culture, whether it's social media, whether it's other groups, and it doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. I think a lot of people do not like to hear that some powerful entity, it's not even the government. We used to think, oh, it's the government that censors things or bans things or can put me in jail. No, it's your average corporation is the one that has all this power. So I think that, books to really succeed, especially when I mentioned before, the book industry loves paper book sales. You need bookstores. Go into a bookstore and browse. You're going to buy something you didn't know you even wanted. And it becomes a social thing. Go to a couple of friends, go to the cafe. Bookstores are great for community. They're great for the book industry. I just think that Amazon, for all the good that it may do, there are far more negatives, mostly dangerous things. They haven't all happened yet. I just think in the future they will happen. So I'm not a big fan.
Well, thank you for elaborating on that. Yeah, I do agree that definitely the communities that, books, like, for example, I guess less people are going to libraries now, like, I mean, compared to the past, right?
Sure.
That will affect like that reading experience is definitely going to be changed by Amazon, and not just Amazon, just the way things are going now with the pandemic, like, a lot of lockdowns going on. So I guess definitely the book reading get-togethers, like, meeting the authors, all those things are going to be affected a lot. And 100%. I guess Amazon's just taking over, sort of.
Oh yeah, they're just cleaning up.
So speaking of like getting to meet the author, I find that like we had the Ottawa Book Expo, like we organized it 2019, and we had a lot of authors there, and the buying experience for the potential customer is they're more inclined to buy when they actually meet the author, like in person. So and of course if they get the autograph, even if they're not, even if they wouldn't pick up that book in a bookstore or order it online, but when they actually meet the author, they get a little bit, it's almost like we're meeting a celebrity, right? It's kind of like that. Could you elaborate on that? Like what's going on through the reader's mind and things like that?
Yeah, you make a very good point. It's a wonderful interaction. Even on Zoom, if they feel, hey, I spoke to such and such author, people, they like that. I mean, that's what society is all about. They love to say they saw a celebrity on the street, even if they didn't talk to that person, right? Or they love to say, I just heard so-and-so speak, and they feel closer to those. And some of these writers are their heroes, or they really love these writers. And when they hear them speak, they love them even more. They feel a friendship, a closeness, even though the author doesn't know who the hell they are.
And even for unknown authors, like if it's their first
that's true too.
Impressed, right? Like right away.
Well, that's why the bookstore event and libraries, speaking at libraries and schools and anywhere, conferences, it's very important. It's a great way for the authors to to reach out to their readers and for the readers to feel connected.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Like just the fact that you actually met the creator, the creator has always a very high value attached to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You mentioned holding your writers conference, your author expo. I used to speak at the BEA, the Book Expo America, which is the largest conference for authors and publishers in the industry. Okay. And I would actually train other publicists from other publishing companies on how to promote books and work with their authors. But at these conferences, they have a lot of author signs and book giveaways, and people line up, to meet these authors, even if they're unknown first-time authors, to get a chance to get their autograph, get a free book, and talk to them even for 10 seconds. So, yeah, there is something about that. Look, books represent people. Books are stories. Books are very personal. Whether it's a novel or nonfiction, it's written by somebody. It's not a corporate widget. It's not just an ordinary product. A book is people, and so when you get to actually meet the person behind that book, that definitely helps sell the book, and people feel a closer relationship to those words. Yeah. Yeah.
Plus the autograph, you never know, it could be worth a lot in the future, right? Like, oh, I got this autograph by so and so, and now
that's true too. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's worth a lot. That's for sure. Author, and I'm sure even if people order online, authors can still do that, right? I mean, would you recommend authors to actually autograph it and send it to the buyer? Do you think that's a good idea?
I get asked this all the time. Some people will do it as a special promotion. They'll say, like, the first 150 people, 500 people, special edition, I'll autograph your book, etc. They may even charge more for it. Yeah. Or not, just as an incentive to get people to buy the book. It takes a little bit more work, because if the book normally is just shipped directly, let's say from Amazon to your home, now you have to get the book sent to the author. Author has to sign it, and then they have to figure out a way to ship it. So some of the economics and physical dynamics change, but where you could do it in person certainly would be a lot easier.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But it's good. Autographing your book is definitely worth more.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great to hear. So also, like, I did look at some of your articles about how authors can build their list of book buyers. So how do you craft such a list? And like for example, I saw you mention like things like MailChimp or Excel or some data softwares that can organize that list. And of course, you need the first name and the email at least, right? So
yes.
So could you just tell us a bit about that process for?
Sure. So you're right. I've written numerous times on Book Marketing Buzz blog about how you should gather your lists and continue to grow your list. So every author knows somebody, even if it's your 20 cousins and friends and family, if it's people you know from school and temple and the neighborhood and your hobbies and however you know people. So I always say, start with that, make a list. Maybe even have several different lists, one for family and friends, one for the people you know this way, one for the people you know that way. If you write more than one book, for the first book, you're trying to capture email addresses. Every time someone goes to your website, you should have a giveaway. Sign here, get the giveaway.
Yes.
Give your name and email. That's the oldest trick in the book is give them something of value or perceived value, whatever that may be. Online, it's easy to provide something that people think is worth something, especially if it's a nonfiction book. There's a lot of how-to, 20 steps to this, 10 ways to do that. Here's my resource guide on this. Here's 8 pages that didn't make into the book but will be valuable to you. So sign here, get my free whatever. And so you gradually build up these names every day, getting people to your site through social media and your blog and speaking and media. Every time people go to that site, they sign up. And then you could email those people every so often, and it's either an offer to sell the book, or maybe you say, hey, I'd love for you to introduce me to 3 more friends, and here's another gift if you do that. So there's endless ways of saying, please keep giving me emails from somebody in some way. I don't suggest buying emails. A lot of mailing lists out there, you don't know how good they are. A lot of these companies won't give you the actual emails. They'll just say, give me your letter, and we'll e-blast it to our 200,000 followers or 100,000 fans or whatever, and you don't know how many messages they're sending out, if they get through. Most of them are not reliable or worth
kind of like
time.
Spamming almost. It becomes like you don't want to get that. It's really spamming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you develop your own list with
Right.
incentives, with just outreach, and over time it will grow. Some people have, huge lists. The best thing to do is to try and build your list and then ask all of your close friends and family for their lists.
Right.
They may not give you all their emails of their friends and family, but they may be willing to send out an email message on your behalf and say, hey, my cousin just wrote a great book. You should check it out. And here's the link on Amazon. And if you buy the book on a certain day, you'll get a free gift from the author. So, create outreach and opportunity, and the numbers will add up. You'll eventually sell a certain number of books, and people will write reviews as a result of those books. So word of mouth keeps going. It's very important.
That's the great points you made. And also that's a very good point that you shouldn't like just pay for those emails, like just to be blasted to random people, like 100,
Right.
even if it's 100,000 people. And
Yes.
Building on that, I just wanted to ask, like, what are your thoughts on these Google ads and like, paying, paying for organic versus actually paying ads, like, and just
Sure.
if somebody searches for a certain book, they find yours in the, like, with Google ads. Do you recommend that, or do you think it's, or what are your thoughts?
That's a good question. I mean, earned versus paid. Earned meaning, and this is true for, let's do a couple of areas. You mentioned advertising. Right. Some people will pay for book reviews, and it's become a known acceptable practice. Doesn't even mean that the book review will be favorable, but you pay for the right to get your book reviewed. One such place is Kirkus Reviews. Kirkus Reviews it's been around, I think, close to 100 years. It's one of the institutional magazines out there for the book industry. Okay. Maybe not quite 100 years, but they're like Publishers Weekly and Library Journal. They're like the New York Times Book Review. Like, it's an established publication. And in the past number of years, they've taken to accepting books for traditional reviews, but also for paid reviews, because they recognize their magazine can only publish so many reviews in a given month or a given issue, but there's so many more authors who want reviews. And so they've decided, okay, we'll sell the right to do that review. Okay. And some of those reviews are worth doing, because if you get a good review in something like Kirkus Reviews, it becomes part of your branding and your third-party validation for your book. Other places, they're smaller outlets, they're unknown. It's not necessarily worth getting a review from joeschmo.com if nobody knows, what that is. Yeah. But in terms of the advertising that you mentioned, so it used to be some authors or publishers, more publishers, would advertise in their newspaper, their local newspaper, or even in the New York Times if they had a big budget. Right. But it rarely pays off, certainly now, it rarely pays off for an author to advertise in a print publication and then get back enough royalties or money to pay for that ad. So everything's moved online. So people will do Google ads, they will do Amazon and Facebook ads. And some authors tell me that they have wonderful success with this, at least when they do it in small doses. Sometimes if you go to the well too often, you're not going to have the same results the second, third, and fourth time. But if you, let's say, have a book and you want to spend, you can experiment. That's the beautiful thing. A lot of these places like Amazon and Google, they only require you to spend $50, $100, $200, and see what works with their SEO, see what works, how many clicks do you get on this ad, how many books do you sell. So it's easy to measure. So after spending what I say, it's not a lot of money, a few $100 in the scheme of things. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. I think it is. I think it can be worthwhile. It may come down to which keywords do you choose to describe your book, or, nonfiction, I think, sells better than fiction with these type of ads, because let's say you're searching for something like something about, let's say you're having problems with your marriage, so you're seeking out marital advice. Right. So you might search different terms, maybe even the term marital advice, get my wife to understand me, how do I talk to my husband, etc. Right. So those words, people are looking for advice. So if your book is an advice-oriented book and they see your book come up, they might buy it. If it's a novel about a relationship gone bad or good, they may not buy it, because at that moment they're looking for not a novel, but a self-help type book. Right. For self-help, it might be more beneficial to use paid advertising. I think so, but it does work for fiction. It depends on the book and what it's about. Yeah, exactly. It's also a bit of luck as well. If somebody's searching. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, luck is always a factor, right? There's only so much. Luck is a factor.
Yeah.
But you can help make your luck by putting yourself out there. If you don't advertise, then there's no chance of having good luck or bad luck, right?
Yeah.
If you don't speak, there's no luck at all if you don't reach out to people. So you got to put yourself out there, and then I think you can get lucky.
Yeah, it's try your best, I guess, till you succeed. Or, you know, as you said, numbers game. The more you put yourself out there, the more results you will get eventually.
Yes, absolutely. But look, I empathize with authors. They get frustrated. They try things that don't work. Maybe they didn't try hard enough. Maybe they didn't try the right way. Or maybe they did everything great, but for that moment, it just didn't sell, or no one was open to their message. But then the next day, they may have better results. The key is not to give up. You've got to keep at it on a consistent basis.
So for example, an author is not very successful after they wrote their book. How much is it because of their content itself that it's not selling, and how much is it, do you think, is the marketing? Like, is it like 50-50? Does the content, is it like 50% content has to be great and 50% marketing, or is it, what do you think?
Well, you know, marketing comes first, because no matter whether the book is good or bad, you first have to market a certain message to induce someone to want to buy the book. So they don't know. So the person buying the book doesn't really know if it's a good book or bad book. They just know, they hear certain words and terms, you know, about what the book's about or why it might be interesting or for them. But so I'd say marketing can induce the sales, whereas even if you have a great book, if no one knows about it or you don't market it well, it's not going to sell. So marketing is probably the most important thing, more than having a good book. But of course, if you have a good book, which is your goal as a writer, it will help you to market it, because you'll market with more confidence and you'll get better word of mouth. And in the long run, you might even win awards and do other things. So certainly it's important to have a good book. I wouldn't say market a crappy book, but but good marketing beats a good book, you know, in the sense that that's just like a good cover draws people in, right? Think of anything, you know, look at commercials. Commercials advertise products every day. Half those products are a bunch of crap or not worth the money that you spent, but you got seduced by the advertising. Maybe there's a pretty woman lures you in and you buy the product, or it looks shiny and new and they use certain words and say, oh yeah. You know, I've watched infomercials sometimes. Usually I turn away from any commercials, but sometimes you get sucked into a good infomercial where they're talking about, you know, music from the 80s or collecting coins or whatever. It sounds so cool and good, and like, how could you not want to buy this? And but then you realize, I could get this on Spotify for $10. I didn't need to spend $150 for this music. So I think the marketing trumps all.
Wow, that's a really good point, because I know some authors, they think as long as their book, they spend so much time on their book and they think they've written the best story ever. It could be a masterpiece for all we know. And at the end of the day, they think that's all they need to do. Like, and then people will just, like, as you said before, like if you build it, they will come. It doesn't always work that way. So marketing, letting people know is a very, very important. Like, it's important to be just as important to be effective marketers, not just good writers. So that's
right.
Or hire somebody who can do kind of like help them out. Channel them in the right direction.
Perfect. You could be my pitch man. You just said that.
Maybe that'd be great. That'd be cool. Work together. Any other thoughts that you want to add to our viewers? Like, how do they get started? Like, is it a very expensive process, or do you think it's better to like just go professional first, or just do it as a hobby first? Like, pros and cons to that.
Well, that's a good question. So the first thing I always ask authors who might work with me, that might hire me to promote them, is, why did you write the book, and what do you hope to accomplish with it? Because that answer will dictate a lot of things. I mean, some people do write, quote unquote, just as a hobby. Maybe they're retired, or it's just they've always liked writing and they want to see their work out there. Others, they write a book because they're really passionate, that they want to get a message out to literally help people. Like, let's say they went through something terrible in their life and they want people to know so that they can avoid these mistakes. Or maybe it's a politically oriented book and you want people to vote Democrat or vote Republican or whatever it may be. Maybe it's a business tool. You wrote the book really just to get advertising for your business and your service and to sell something else that's more valuable than the book. So it depends on why you wrote the book and what you're trying to accomplish. It depends on how much time do you have to promote, how much money do you have to market it, and what your goals are. Some people write a book hoping that they may self-publish, hoping that a traditional publisher will discover them or pick it up. Others hope that their book will be turned into a movie, that the book is secondary, the movie's first, like for a fiction story. So to answer your question, it's hard to just narrow it down, but my advice would be, definitely if you feel like you want to write a book, you should. But I also think it comes with responsibility. Make sure that you hire an editor to edit that book. Test it out with some of your friends and family, have them read the book. Hopefully you'll get some honest feedback. You know, make it the best possible book before you really release it. But then once you unleash it, go at it. Even if it's a hobby, if you want people to read your book, even if you don't care how many people buy it, but you want to circulate, you've got to be active with publicity and social media and other things. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't be shy. You have to be. You have to kind of like put yourself out there. Yeah. That's
right. That's exactly right. And look, some authors are shy for sure, and that's when you have to hire someone to help you. But even then, someone that you hire, like myself, they can only do so many things without an author being a part of the equation. You know, so for instance, you might be shy in reaching out to the media to get interviews and book reviews. I can do that for you. But when it comes time to actually being interviewed by the media, you gotta be willing to talk to the media. Of course, we media coach you and help alleviate your fears. But you know, if you just don't want to do that, then you just don't do it. But it hurts you in the long run to try and market your book.
It does. It does. People love to put a face to the book, right? If they see your face on the book. That's another thing I wanted to ask. Do you think it's a good idea to put your photo in the book cover, the backs? I know some people do it, some people don't. What are your thoughts on that?
So the back cover of the book, well, look, let's face it. If you're attractive, and I guess define attractive, you're more inclined to put your photo on the book, and it might draw people. It depends on the subject matter too. So books that have a relationship connection, like let's say it's a book written by a therapist. So that's of your mind, and they're talking to you, and you got to know them. Let's say it's written by a salesperson, also very personable. Books like that, I think having a picture on the back cover or the inside cover is helpful. Putting it on the front cover, that's pretty bold. Unless you're somebody or you're trying to convey a certain type of message, I wouldn't necessarily put your face on the cover unless you're already a known entity, a recognizable face. But I think, people want to see your face. They want to hear your voice. When they go to your website, they don't want to just read words. They want to see a picture of you. They want to hear audio, video, even if it's for 2 minutes at a time or 3 minutes. They want to know you're a real person and what you're like. They want to read your bio. They want to even know if you have a dog and where do you live. It all shapes our feeling for who you are. You know, the more, if I got to know you after this interview, you know, I would be drawn closer to you or further away, depending on what you say. You know, the more things we have in common and that are relatable, the more likely we'll be friends, or that you'll buy from me or I'll buy from you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And also, speaking of audio, like, what are your thoughts on audiobooks? I know those are also like getting more popular because people want to kind of listen to a book while they're doing something else because they might not have the time. Do you think it's worth it for all authors to have their own version of audiobook, or
no?
No.
Okay. But let me certainly add to that. Audiobooks are growing through the roof. You're absolutely right. I did some work a few years ago for the audio, what's it called? The Audio Publishers Association of America, which is a conglomerate of 60 or 70 audiobook publishers, like huge ones. And I knew even from then and from then forward, every year audiobooks have been growing for the past, I think, 12 years, 11 years. And it's mostly through the streaming. So it used to be an audiobook. It used to be an audiobook on tape, right? Old cassettes and 8 tracks and all that stuff. Then and then they had now audiobooks being streamed online and listening to it on your headset, on your device, while you're exercising, while you're traveling, while you're commuting, is perfect. So you're right. So the numbers are growing out the roof. But that said, even though audiobook sales have been increasing by 30-40% every year for many years now, it's still a tiny fraction of the book industry. I think it makes up maybe 4%, 5% of all book sales are audiobooks. So in the scheme of things, it's still a tiny fraction of all books sold. But within that little fraction, it's been growing like crazy. I think it depends on the book. So, right, and it depends on how you like to consume books. Some people really don't like to read that often, so they may listen to a novel on tape, on audiobook. They may listen to a how-to kind of book if they want to learn how to do something or they want advice. Some people like to listen to books that are plays, written plays. You talk about how a lot of movies and TV shows are based on books. Well, when you listen to an audiobook, it can become very theatrical. You could read Les Miserables, you can see it in the theater, or you could listen to an audiobook of Les Mis and get all that singing and dialogue and stuff. So it could be a cool experience. So any book could be an audiobook, but I do think certain books do better than others. Certainly the how-to books. You're in your car, you're on a business trip. When business trips return, you may spend 2 hours listening to an audiobook about how to be a better salesperson, how to be a better boss, how to make more money, or learn about a new industry.
Right.
For kids, audiobooks can be cool. You want to keep them occupied when you're traveling or on a long road trip. They'll listen to books that are age appropriate, while you're driving. So a lot of good things, a lot of reasons why people, but going back to your question, authors, they can produce audiobooks in a less expensive way than they used to be able to, and the technology makes it easier, but for most, it doesn't pay still. It's still not worth their time, or it's not the right book for that audience.
Okay, yeah, I'd imagine like reading all those, like to record it, it would cost a lot.
It would, and depending on your voice, you may have to hire someone to do the reading for you, which is another cost. It could be a plus also. Some people hire, known actors and entities, maybe not a true A-lister, but someone who's in the Actors Guild, maybe has a few credits under their belt. And so that could be attractive, but everything costs a few thousand for this and a few thousand for that. And I would say authors are better off first making their book successful through marketing. Pay me first, and then worry about your audiobook.
You just marketed yourself really well there.
Got to do that.
Yeah, well done. Any final words you want to leave with the viewers today that are listening to this, Brian?
Yeah, I would say certainly if they haven't heard it yet, loud and clear, don't give up hope. You wrote your book. Now get out there, market that book. There's support out there for you. And look, even if the first book doesn't work out, no matter what you try and do, don't give up. Sometimes it's the second book that becomes successful, and you learn from what you did on the first book, and you keep building. Every book builds to something. Every blog post builds to something. Every Twitter follower. It takes sometimes months and years to build up your following, your brand. But once you break through, it's such a wonderful feeling. And
it is.
I encourage authors certainly to read my blog, the Book Marketing Buzz blog, and they can contact me through there. But lots of great advice out there. Authors have to follow it and embrace it, or hire someone to do it. Otherwise, it just doesn't get done.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian.
You're welcome.
Today. And I would like to let you know that I'm also like an author myself. Like I just released my first comic book. Yeah, Trollcat Comics. So wonderful. Like I said, like I was hesitating because I've been doing comics for a while, just for free basically, or whatever Google ads, whatever money I make.
Yeah. Okay.
People did ask, why don't you compile it all into one book? So I thought, why not? So just talking to you has been a great inspiration, and it's giving me a lot of ideas.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a copy. That sounds great.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll probably get in touch with you later on after this interview.
Awesome.
More questions. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
No problem. And thank you so much, Brian Feinblum, for joining us today on the Toronto Business Journal. And we wish you a lot of success. And if there's any potential authors listening, please be sure to visit bookmarketingbuzzblog.blogspot.com. And Brian will be able to you'll be able to get in touch with Brian, and maybe you can see how you can work things out with him. And never give up, and keep writing. Right?
Woohoo!
Yeah, keep going. Thanks so much, Brian. You bring a lot of energy to the interview, and I think a lot of our viewers will really like this.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
I like when I do. I appreciate the opportunity.
No problem.
All right.